World Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola. Everyone's in studio today with Jason Cross.
Hello.
Leif Johnson.
Hi.
And the most important man in the room
I'm always the most important.
That's right.
Yes.
Always.
is Dan Masuoka.
You're
Hello,
embracing
everyone.
it now. You're usually like, hello.
The reason he's the most important man in the room is because Dan monitors our Twitter and YouTube feeds. If you, the viewer, have any comments or questions about today's podcast or about Apple in general or technology in general or the fall season, because it's starting to rain here in San Francisco.
It's warm.
The new TV shows coming out, whatever.
The new TV season, the upcoming Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes. Dan's looking for those comments, and he'll chime in when you guys have something to say. So that's why Dan is the most important person in
Right.
the
Dan,
room.
D-A-N, 3 letters.
Dan.
Should you be asked on, say, a quiz or
I'm saying
something?
quiz, like for instance, we have a free iPhone XS Max giveaway that we're doing in conjunction with iMobi, the makers of the AnyTrans data service, data transfer service. So if you're interested in this giveaway, we're giving away one phone to a lucky Macworld reader podcast viewer. Go to our website. There's a link on the homepage to enter. And the way it works is there are certain hoops that you have to jump through, certain questions that you have to answer to get a number of entries. So like you can get one entry, you get an extra entry for answering a certain question.
Right.
Yeah, the easiest way is to just put your email and that's it, and that's one entry.
Right.
Right,
And
you
then
one
if there
entry.
are additional ones.
And then, yeah, if you follow us on Twitter, that's an entry.
Right.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's
Right.
an entry. Retweet a tweet, that's an entry. Yeah, that's so. But yeah, 64 gig space gray, iPhone XS Max. People watching the video, that's it right there. Still in its shrink wrap,
Not open.
not
This is
open
what
to
it
touch
looks
by
like
us.
opened.
Yeah, and we'll
Unscathed.
and we're choosing the person. The contest ends on
Entry. So we'll
the-
stop accepting entries on the 15th, and then we'll announce the
Right.
winner on the 17th. So you have a few days to enter, but
Right.
why wait?
yeah. Get
So-
get your entries in.
And we have
Yeah.
another cool contest lined up after that. if
Oh,
you're a
and
hack
good
user.
question. Cherry Berry 1967 asks, is it worldwide competition or USA only?
Oh,
It's-
that's a good point.
U.S. and Canada, I believe,
It's Canada except for Quebec.
except for
Yes.
Quebec, because
Just
they
wait,
have
that's over
laws
there.
that they don't like these things.
Yeah.
Yes. We are still working on trying to add more countries.
Yeah, it's a legal thing. We're
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah, we have legal hoops to jump through. So
We wouldn't want to send you a phone that doesn't work on your local network anyway. So
Right.
there's that too. We
Sure.
know this will work for U.S. and Canada. This is an unlocked phone and will work on U.S. and Canada
yeah.
networks.
Yeah, so we have on the entry form, it tells who's eligible, and you have to be over 18. You have to be in the United States and Canada except Quebec. Is it Quebec?
Quebec.
And
You can get
Yes.
away with either. Yeah.
so yeah, check out the homepage for that link.
Yeah.
Enter and for your chance to win. Today's topics of the for the podcast, we're going to talk about iOS 12.1, which is coming out soon. But the main topic we're going to talk about is of course, the iPhone XS and some reports of some issues that have been happening with some users in regards to the release of the new phone. There's always
Buggy phone,
problems
yeah.
when
Yeah.
when a new product comes out.
Yep.
No matter what it is. There always seems to be problems because there's only so much testing a company can do.
Yeah, when you sell so many millions,
Right.
then even a little fraction of a percent of
Right.
people having some problem is tens of thousands of
Yeah.
people. You could be. And they're all going to take to Twitter
Right.
and or YouTube or whatever and let
Yeah.
you know.
So the one issue that seems to have gotten the most attention is the whole beauty gate, as it's being dubbed, the whole beauty gate problem. Now, Jason, could you explain what beauty gate the issue
Sure.
is? Beauty gate.
Yeah,
is?
people are complaining that when using the selfie camera, the front-facing camera, that there is a softening filter that's a lot like the beautification filters you see on like a lot of Android phones. They have like a beauty mode, and it just makes your face look really soft and takes a lot of the detail out and your skin smooth and reduces your blemish. And sometimes they have sliders and you do things like improve your skin tone and all that, you know. And the argument is that when it sees that it's got a face in view, it's changing the white balance and for your skin tone, and it's smoothing out your face, and you look all plastic and everything. And there's no toggle, there's no button, there's no beauty button or anything. It's just always doing this. So that's the argument. It's somewhat true in the sense that like I can take a selfie with an iPhone 10, its front camera, and I can take an identical one like right afterward with the iPhone 10s, and it's definitely softer.
So the
Like
processing has changed.
Yeah, so the processing
Some
has
amount.
changed, and the argument, the guys who make the Halide app, which is a really great high-end photography app, by the way, have their explanation of what they think is happening is it's just because Apple is now, even if you turn Smart HDR off, what they're kind of doing is they're taking multiple exposures that are faster exposures, like higher shutter
Right.
speed and higher ISO to get them exposed right, which makes more noise, and they're stacking those together to get a good shot, and that makes them have to use more aggressive noise reduction, and that more aggressive noise reduction, you don't notice it so much
Right.
on the rear camera, which is a bigger sensor and everything, but the little tiny sensor in the front camera, that the noise and the noise reduction they have to do is smoothing out details
Yeah.
and stuff too.
So Peregrine Took on Twitter is asking, people are complaining that they look too good. So are people looking better or worse? So what's the deal here?
It was funny. There was one blog post where I looked
Yeah.
at, and they were like, you know, the person was saying, you know, oh, I like the one on the left. You know, it's like the iPhone 10 more.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, the one on the right is a lot better.
I think the complaint is that it shouldn't be applying some sort of beauty filter without your say so.
Right.
Yes.
It doesn't look true, I think.
It doesn't
is
look
what's
true,
wrong.
and there's
Right.
no option. Like you should be able to turn it off and get a true picture. And there doesn't seem to be any nefarious like the the theory is that Apple's trying to grow their sales in China and stuff, and in those markets, these selfie beauty filters are super popular.
They like
seriously, this is the
so they
prevailing
just
theory.
they just made the default like
More aggressive.
kind of put a little bit of a beauty filter, not tell anybody, and then people in China were like, I don't think it's that. I think I buy the noise reduction theory because if you look at the specs of the stats of the shots that you've taken, it does have higher shutter speeds and higher ISO on the new camera.
Yeah.
And that would lead you to have to do. So I hope Apple just kind of dials it back a little bit. Like maybe go
Right.
with a little bit longer shutter speed or a little lower ISO and a
Right.
little less noise reduction just to try and get that to be a little better.
I will say that my skin looks like it glows a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
That's
that
just
I don't
you,
really
Leif.
like. Well, I don't.
You're just
you know,
glowing.
I mean, it's
are you
nice
pregnant,
in a way,
Leif?
but
I think
no,
Leif's
I'm
pregnant,
drinking a lot of
everyone.
water, though. They say that helps,
Breaking
yeah.
news: Leif is
So-
pregnant.
It makes them
I
go
can't
up.
afford a baby.
Is there an option where I can keep my freckles but lose the zits, so I get smart enough to know?
No,
it's
you
called
have, to,
Photoshop.
you'd have to download an app. There are a million apps that'll do that for you.
Yeah.
Clone stamp tool.
Yeah. So, but the takeaway of this is it's the theory. I think the Halide guys, I tend to believe what they think is happening.
Yeah,
here
that
is
seems
true.
like a more reasonable theory.
It's more of a result of, I don't want to say over processing, but the process.
the processing is
creates
more.
this
Yeah,
effect.
yeah.
Right. It's not that Apple has put a beautify or whatever you want to call it
Exactly.
filter
Mm-hmm.
and they're applying it. So that means the fix is maybe a little more complicated,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure it can be done because it's just software that has to be done.
Yeah, they can easily just
Right.
like slow down
Tone
the
it
shutter
down or
speed
something.
and
It's
the
not,
ISO a little
we're
bit.
going to turn off the filter. It's
Yeah.
we have to make these
We
adjustments.
just make some tweaks.
Yeah.
I think they could do it. I don't know if they want to. Apple has
Right.
been very quiet about this. Hasn't said
Right.
anything. It's worth noting that in other ways, the selfie camera is a lot better. Like the Smart
Yeah.
HDR stuff works a lot. You get a lot of dynamic range problems with that small front camera. You use that front camera when you've got a light behind you and it's a mess with an iPhone 10 or something. And with the 10s, you get a much better shot in terms of exposure and all that. So there's a lot of other benefits. but it's a little bit of a what I called it a distinction without a difference. Like
Yeah.
that the reason may be legit why it looks that way, but it still does look that way. It still does
Right.
kind of look softer
Yeah.
and less detailed.
And along those lines, you'll see a big backlash on Reddit and some forums and stuff where people, oh, they're just saying that's Apple being Apple. Look how cool we are, and they were, and then they'll, jump on that and stuff. So I saw some really vicious threads this morning where, they were talking about the Halide one, but it was, they were, acting like it's just people praising Apple's virtues without saying that it screwed something up.
So what do you think? You think Apple's gonna give a fix it, like bring down the aggressiveness, or for maybe region specific, or do you think it's gonna create an update to the software where you can adjust that?
I don't think they'll do anything region specific.
Yeah.
And I don't think there'll be any visible UI thing.
No.
They're either not going to change it at all, because this is what they want. They want faster shutter speeds, and they'll do more noise reduction, and that's what you get. Or they'll make a little tweak in some software update, and they're not even going to mention it.
Right.
We'll discover it by examining
Right.
our photos. Somebody's going to go, hey, and it's a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. So it may not be as extreme as now. It'll still do it because that's the way their camera works.
Yeah,
essentially.
working as intended.
Yeah.
You just don't like
So,
it.
yeah. You just don't like it. So
Is there an issue with people's, whether it's like skin tone or complexion, that it just ends up being more noticeable on?
So I tried several times because my people, thankfully, you probably can't notice this on camera, but I have really bad skin. And
You don't really.
It's all right.
it's pretty bad. But, well, I guess because I've been taking so many selfies to try to get this to work.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem to work for me.
Right.
So, and I don't know if it's because maybe I need to shave, because maybe my facial hair kind of messes up whatever.
You're too beautiful
yeah.
already.
It
Yeah,
shouldn't.
maybe I'm just
Yeah.
too beautiful, too handsome.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get it to work for me.
Yeah.
So, and Leif did a sample when we were talking about this in our Slack room, and you could tell it wasn't that dramatic though, as we've seen in other
Right.
samples.
I mean, I took a picture in our article talking about these problems. I put up an example photo, and it's just the iPhone 10, the iPhone 10s. You can definitely see zoomed in. It's softer.
Yeah.
It's not as sharp. And then the 10s with me putting my hand in front of my face, because
Right.
when it notices a face in the picture, it does adjust the white balance
Yeah.
to optimize for your skin tone.
Yeah.
And that does change the white balance of the picture, and you may not like it. It definitely yellowed the entire sort of
Right.
overall white balance. And it made my skin look less pale and gross, but also maybe less realistic.
Right. Right. So, and if you had that one example, but did you find any variance in?
I
when
mean,
you
yeah,
were
like
doing
when I would take outdoor ones, yes, and it's true. You would see a lot more of the blemishes in my skin and stuff. But kind of like Halide said, if you look in, especially in sunlight, they're still there. It's just like the detail is still there. It's like it's de-emphasized though, or something. Yes. So.
But some people on the interwebs had examples where it looked almost like makeup was applied.
Right.
Yeah, I've not been able to force anything
Yeah.
to be even close to that extreme.
Right.
Well, interestingly, I did see some posts. How you were saying that you weren't noticing anything.
Yeah.
They say that this is one of those rare camera things where it's like the lighter your skin is, the more it shows up.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting.
So,
Yeah, little fine lines and wrinkles and stuff like that will just get a little bit, because it's a noise
Faded.
reduction filter. So
Right.
it's,
Yeah. So that'll be something we'll keep an eye on. So
yeah, as we said, Apple hasn't even so much as acknowledged it. They
Right.
haven't said a thing.
yeah.
I do like the camera overall, and you've probably noticed I've been taking a lot of photos and stuff. But yeah, there is something about selfies that doesn't seem as satisfying this time around. And it has something to do with the color. Like I said, that glow, and it almost like it feels like it's making my skin orange or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely got a kind of a yellowing filter
Yes.
to the
It just looks kind of weird.
selfies.
Yes.
Yeah. So another issue that has kind of come up that has come up with the iPhone 10s is some charging problems. Some people have been reporting that when they plug in their device, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When the screen is off like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you plug it in. Normally it wakes up and goes ding and it shows you
Right.
it's charging, and that just doesn't even happen. and it doesn't start charging.
Yeah. So, and sometimes you have to unplug the cable and plug it back in.
Yeah, sometimes you
have to
can wake it up and it'll work.
Right.
Sometimes you have to unplug and replug
Yeah.
it. Yeah, people have been having some wonky issues.
Now, have people? Haven't checked. Have people only said that it's when you plug it in? Have people said anything about wireless charging issues?
I've known people that said there's one on there, Shank, who responded. He said that he only charges his phone wireless, and he didn't even notice it until he plugged it in.
Yeah.
And but so yeah, it is. I think it is entirely a plug-in problem. Where I responded to him, it's like, I am the opposite. I have never wirelessly charged this phone. I've only ever used a cord, and I've never seen that problem. I haven't seen it on my iPad Pro. I didn't see it on the iPhone 7 Plus. So
yeah, a few people are mentioning that it's not just the iPhone XS. They think it's also the ever since upgrading to iOS 12, they've had the problem with earlier iPhones or
Right.
iPads, and all of our iDevices that all of us have, we have not been able to make this happen. So there's some percentage, because there's videos.
There's plenty of proof
out there.
Yeah.
There's plenty of proof that's happening for one, and for two, it's in the iOS 12.1 beta 2, which is just a developer beta right now. The public beta will probably come out today. Probably as we're recording this. Actually, that actually fixes the problem. So, and
we hope.
Everybody's reporting it. Everyone who has it is reporting it's fixed.
It's fixed.
In that. Last time I checked, there may be release notes now, but when I first checked, the release notes were still blank for that beta. Like, Apple's been kicking out betas, and then the release notes just say, like, there's no release notes for this one. And I'm like, there are. Put them up. Like, what? So I'll have to check again and see if they have release notes and it's in the fixed.
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness it was just software then, because if that was like a charging with the
Yeah.
and stuff,
Like
like hardware.
chip or something like that. That would be
People have said they think it's related to that new feature where
the USB
the
restricted
USB
mode.
restricted mode. But I don't think that's it for two reasons. Number one, you have to enable that. It's not by default enabled.
Right.
Number two, they actually released that in an iOS 11 update, a
Right.
late iOS 11 update, and nobody had this charge problem.
Yeah.
So it's something else in iOS 12.
Yeah.
And now it's, as soon as this 12.1 rolls out, which will be, where beta 2 is rolling out now, but I think they're getting, I think it's going to release soon.
It's going to release soon. Yeah.
Do we have a sense of like the scope of how many people are affected?
It's so hard to
It's
say.
hard to tell. Yeah.
Because the people who are really vocal about it are really vocal
Right.
about it.
Yeah, like we tried, between us, it had to be a dozen devices. Has
Yeah.
not seen the problem.
Yeah. We haven't been able to replicate
But
the issues.
random
at all.
stuff can be like that sometimes, you know?
Right.
I have one friend who says he has the problem, but I have not
Yeah.
seen it in person because he lives in Austin. So.
Yeah. So it's a not zero number, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's real.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing now in this internet age. I'll start to sound like the old man, and because complaints become louder,
Yeah.
so to speak. And they gain more momentum. And the problem is you don't really have any scope because it could be a small minority. But as you were saying, there are millions of these devices.
Yeah. The more popular your brand is, the more you sell.
Right.
The harder it is to not have a groundswell of
Right.
complaints online,
Yeah.
even from a tiny
Right.
fraction of problems.
Right. Even if it's like just 1,000 people 1,000 devices out of 80 million or
Yeah.
something. I'm just throwing a million number out there. It's probably even bigger than that.
Yeah.
That's a small percentage, but because
Yeah.
everyone has access to a computer and the internet now,
It's
because
like when the
the
Note 5. What was the one that blew up? Note 4.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
The one that blew up.
Yeah.
The one that blew up.
The
That's
notes
what you
that
know
blew
it
up.
is.
Like your odds of your note blowing up was
Right.
like 0.0005%.
Right.
But it's your phone blowing up,
Yeah.
and that's still hundreds of people, and that's not
Right, yeah.
acceptable.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
ban it
I
on
don't mean to
planes.
trivialize the issues. It's
Yeah.
just that if you're not experiencing the problem, there's a pretty good chance that you're in the majority and
Mhm.
not the minority. So
It's just like the non-functioning butterfly keyboards. I
Right.
do not
Yeah.
deny that is an issue where people get dust in there, but I'm kind of nasty with my keyboards, honestly. And luckily I've never had that problem.
Yeah.
So
another problem that's popped up that might even be happening to fewer people than the charging problem is a wireless performance issue. A lot of people, or maybe more, I don't know. But like I said, we'll never know. People are complaining about Wi-Fi and cellular connectivity from the iPhone XS, that they're getting weaker connections.
Yes.
So,
Not necessarily slower,
right.
because those are different things, but just less signal, and like where they would have marginal signal before it might drop out
Yeah.
or something like that. So it's more about RF strength reception.
Yeah.
And there was a good blog out there, kind of an engineering type blog, that looked at the FCC filings and said, a while ago, before anybody complained anything, and said, "Oh, look, the RF signal strength is lower on the 10s than it was on the on the 10."
It is actually lower.
And that's. But on the other hand, even with less signal, they have 4x4 MIMO now and link aggregation, LAA, and stuff that you might get better performance even with a lower signal. All our tests, we got better performance.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that it may not even be fixable.
Right.
And it might not be something.
Maybe you're just holding it wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
You might recall that I think it was the last podcast where I said that I had, there was a bookstore that I often go to, and I can never use the phone, my 7 Plus, I can never get the, my LTE connection to work in there.
Mm-hmm.
It works now. It's not great, but it actually works. So
Yeah.
that's a case of, my signal at least being stronger in some
Yeah,
ways.
there's so many variables in wireless that it's just impossible to say for certain, this is the reason, and this is what it is, and this is why, and this happens to everybody. And
Because I'm a little confused, because I thought like you did some speed testing, right? And I thought you were getting better connections everywhere.
better speed,
Okay.
but it's not the same thing as a better connection. Like because you have 4x4 MIMO, and because you can link aggregate more channels together and stuff like that, you can, if the signal strength might be a little bit weaker, but you're getting more data in the signal. So you're getting the speeds, the download and upload speeds might be better, but you might have a weaker connection to the network, weaker signal strength to the network.
I see.
And that's what people are complaining about, is a signal strength problem.
Yeah.
I will say when I go home, I live on one of the highest points of San Francisco. Corbett is a road that I go through, and Corbett is, the entire street is basically just a dead zone.
Yeah.
You can't get any signal on there, and that remains true even with the 10s Max.
And you're on Verizon?
Yes, I am.
Verizon,
Yes.
yeah.
And Verizon's one of the more stronger.
Yeah, they have a lot of low
Carriers here.
frequency
Yeah.
carrier bandwidth, and that's good for going far and going through obstacles and stuff like that. So that's the other thing. It's like, what towers are near you, what frequencies are they on, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's just so many variables in wireless. It's really hard to say
Yeah.
what's going on.
And Dead Sea Genesis on YouTube is saying that they're experienced this exact problem, and Verizon has admitted that it's an issue. So
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Now there was
to them at least.
There was some problem with, specific to Verizon, that's separate than this, with like activations not working right, and then even when things got activated, not getting on the right, not supporting the right channels or bands or something, and Apple waved their fingers at Verizon, and Verizon waved their fingers at Apple, and you don't like go get a new SIM, and who knows what's going on there.
Yeah.
So there seems to be something else Verizon related that has to do with activation.
Yeah.
So if this is happening to you, or you think this is happening to you, there's a couple things you can try. You can always go into airplane mode and then come out, and sometimes you'll just connect to a different band,
Right.
a
Just
different channel, a different
kind of
band.
disconnect.
So
connect.
connect
Kind
and
of like turn
reconnect.
it off, turn it back on. Without actually turning it off.
So that's the easiest
Yeah.
thing and the least likely to work, but maybe that'll help. The next thing is you can go into settings, general, reset, and there's a reset network connections in there. Reset network settings. You can do that. That won't reset your whole phone. I think it has to reboot, but your data doesn't go anywhere.
But it resets like
And
all your Wi-Fi passwords.
It resets all your Wi-Fi passwords, so that's annoying, but that's it. And then all your connection APNs and all that other stuff for your cellular, that all gets downloaded anew. So that's the next easiest thing to try. And then the worst thing is just do a clean restart and set up your phone as a new phone and re-download all your stuff. Don't restore from a backup.
Right.
Like that's the nuclear option.
Yeah.
That's kind of like for any problem with your iPhone, like
Right.
I can't figure out why I'm having this problem. Like that's the thing.
Just start over.
Start over.
Over and set it up as a new phone instead
Yeah.
of restoring from a backup, and it really,
Right.
that's the worst. That's just kiss 2 hours of your life goodbye trying to re-download
Right.
everything.
And that's the thing you want to do if you have these persistent problems wherever you're going. You're having issues like going into airplane mode. Airplane mode. I can't talk to it. Is the kind of thing like you suddenly just notice that your thing is worse. You know it gets better if you go over there. So that's a quick thing you can do.
Maybe just disconnect, reconnect.
So few things you can do if your wireless is
This is also something that Apple hasn't even mentioned,
They haven't
and
said, yeah.
it may or may not even be fixable in software. It's not
right.
not clear what would be causing it.
Yeah.
It's probably not the baseband, the Intel baseband that they have in there, as opposed to the Qualcomm one. That's not really what deals with these things. It usually has to deal with antenna gain design and the way they regulate power to the antennas and
Yeah.
all this other stuff. I don't know if what they can change with a software update.
So you think, in other words, you think it is what it is?
It might just be what it is,
Right.
and it might actually not be worse for most people. For the vast majority of people, you may actually end up with a stronger connection even with a weaker signal, if that makes sense.
You mean like the makeup from the speed will negate the weaker?
More than
potentially,
right?
Yeah.
All right.
So we asked on Twitter if anybody who owns a 10s, if they were experiencing any of these reported problems. Out of 1,079 votes, 29% said yes, 71% said no. So roughly
Like
300 people.
Yeah, like almost a third had at least one of these problems.
Yeah.
And frankly, I can imagine the selfie smoothing Beautygate thing that's kind of almost everybody. You just have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Not everybody's sat there and compared.
Right.
Between their old phone,
Yeah.
but I think that's kind of happening to everyone. I think that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those. I think it is one of those feature, not a bug things.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Yeah. Of the people who responded, a lot of people. It seemed like most of the comments were about connectivity issues, wireless connectivity.
Interesting. See, one thing I was wondering, and I used to be like the rural champion when I used to write for tech stuff before coming here. But, the signal strength, I used to live way out in the middle of nowhere. And, I would be interested to see how this phone performs now. But we had good service out there. Nice thing about living in nowhere is there's not anything impeding the lines. But yes. But yeah, there are places I know to go to, like in Texas and stuff, where I would be able to test the signal strength. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I am the pancake on Twitter said that they had some Wi-Fi speed issues, but when they restored from a backup, everything worked fine. Vitaly Krill on Twitter said they had bad wireless sometimes and not even charging. So they had it twice.
They're not
So
even charging.
if they
is
could
the
vote
thing.
twice in our poll, they could have. But yeah, so that sounds like a bad phone. I don't know, but.
Well, that's probably the thing they fixed in 12.1, the not charging
Right.
thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a few people said they noticed the camera processing. Some people, people.
That's going to be
talking about
harder
the
to notice if you don't side by side it with
Right.
like an exactly same something you just took exactly the same,
Right.
right after.
I don't take a lot of selfies, so I wouldn't have even. I wouldn't have
Me
noticed
either.
it
I take plenty of photos and videos with my phone, but always with the back camera. I'm
Right.
taking pictures of my cats
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. Now, going back to that, the back camera does have some retouching, but it's not as bad as the front camera.
Yeah, the theory is that they're doing the same thing they're doing with the front camera, which is they're shooting at faster shutter speeds with higher ISO to get more exposures, and they're stacking them all together to do their great make more dynamic range stuff, right? It's just that it's a much bigger sensor
Right.
that can handle that better
Right.
without making so much noise, so
Right.
they don't have to make such aggressive noise reduction.
Right. Yeah.
And that aggressive noise reduction filter is what's smoothing out all those
Yeah.
details.
Yeah. So hopefully some of these issues will be fixed with the 12.1 update.
Yeah,
which is
the
coming soon.
12.1 update does well. We know it fixes the power thing.
Yeah, so
The
we know it
charging
fixes
thing.
the power thing. What else do we know of? You've been playing with the beta, right?
Yes.
So, and there are a few new features in the 12.1.
Yeah. Emoji, the
Right.
emoji 11 standard emoji, which is 70 or something emojis. Redheads and curly hair people and superheroes and
Lettuce.
a lot of foods and animals. You know, everybody loves more emoji. They announced it back this summer for World
Yeah.
Emoji Day, and they said it's coming in iOS 12, and it didn't make the first release, so that's coming. So there'll be new emoji. There'll be the eSIM is turned on in the phones.
Yeah, so
you
it's
can-
not currently turned on.
It's not currently turned on, but if you go into the settings, cellular, you'll see add cellular network. And when you hit that, it brings up a scan QR code thing because that's how your carrier will support it. So you need carrier support too, and they'll provide you with a QR code and you just point it at that and that gets you all the settings and stuff. But that's at least in there and on. And then what's the other?
Group FaceTime?
Group
Yes,
FaceTime.
Group
Group FaceTime's back in. They pulled
Okay.
that out of 12
Right.
in the middle of the betas.
And they said it was coming in the fall.
Coming in the fall, and it's back
So-
in the 12.1 betas. If it works right, I guess it'll be in the final.
Right. So is it available for use in the 12.1 beta?
Yes.
It is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fully, when you just go in there, it's
Okay.
full.
And when will that be released?
Well, they don't give a date, but I'm expecting pretty soon because
Because the beta has been released to developers
and
And
beta
the-
1 is available to public.
in the public, right? So it's a matter of days. So
If this is the last beta, but it's
right, that's true.
one of the things in 12.1 is there's a lot of sort of code that mentions stuff about new iPads. So, and if new iPads are coming this month, then 12.1 is going to drop before new iPads do,
right. Oh,
or
that's
in time for
interesting.
the new iPads. They'll
Yes.
That's what
probably
I'm
ship
thinking.
with 12.1 or something.
Right.
So, so I think they're close because it's mostly just bug fixes. You know,
Yeah.
even the new features are like fixing things that they couldn't fix in time for the the iOS
Right.
12 release,
Right.
like the eSIM thing and stuff like that. They just didn't have it ready in time.
yeah.
So yeah, I think, and then that's almost everything. The only
Yeah.
thing missing is the ECG stuff on the Apple Watch.
Okay.
That's still not in any beta or anything yet,
Uh-huh.
and that's still coming this year. So there'll be a WatchOS update, and the Health app in iOS will be updated to have the ECG.
Has there been a Watch OS 4.1 update released? Beta released yet?
There's a you mean 5.1?
5.1,
that's what I
yeah.
was-
Yeah, there's a 5.1.
Okay, there is a
All right,
5.1.
so there are no consumer betas for
Right. There's no
WatchOS.
consumer base for what? Yeah.
But there's a developer beta 1 and 2.
Okay.
They release the same days
Okay.
as the iPhones usually.
Okay. I missed that.
So
Yeah, because that just
and
happened
they
like
and they
earlier this
didn't do
week,
any.
yeah.
I mean, they added the emoji because you can do messages on your watch. But there's no real significant huge things there. Some people have mentioned a couple of like really obscure little bugs with their
Yeah.
Apple Watch. You know that seem to be fixed in the betas. Hard to say. Nothing like these widely reported bugs with the
Right.
iPhone.
So I have a general question. So eSIM,
Mhm.
why are you guys
Siri woke up from that. That's
Siri,
really
well,
weird.
Hey Sarah, why are you guys? So I for some reason what I just said triggered Siri and it said
Hey, Sarah.
yeah, I don't know what that was.
That was
Anyways,
weird.
That was weird. So eSIM, I'm not that familiar with eSIM. Are you guys
Yeah.
familiar with it? What is the advantage of eSIM? Why should I care about eSIM? Kind of
Well,
like the eSIM
It's
101.
what's in the cellular watches, for
Okay.
example. That's how they do it. You know, you don't pop out a SIM card.
Right.
Because it's so tiny, right?
Right.
So the advantage is the advantage to phone makers and stuff is it saves space.
Yes.
You know, it's
Right.
it's this super tiny thing on the circuit board that's like programmable.
Yeah.
The advantage to consumers is you would be able to potentially shop for cellular service like online or something and switch your cellular plans and not have to like
Not
go
have to
into
go
a
to a
store
store,
and
yeah.
get a SIM card and all that other
Yeah.
stuff, which is why some carriers don't like it.
Right.
Right.
Because they're trying to keep people like they're trying to make it a pain to switch.
Right.
But other carriers want it to be easy to switch because they want to try and attract new customers.
Right. And it was one of the reasons why, like, I was hesitant to switch back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, so I've tried different carriers. Just
Now they
because-
just want to lock you into like payment plans.
Right.
Right.
And in particular on the iPhone, you'll be able to use a regular traditional SIM and an eSIM at the same time. You can
Yeah.
have essentially two cellular plans because you may want to do just one data plan or one plan that's prepaid like international plan.
Right,
With something else. And you can
Yeah.
choose, this is my primary number that I do my phone calls on. And this is something else.
Yeah.
That's really popular in a lot of other countries where they don't have a lot of unlimited plans and the data
Yeah.
rates and stuff are so different. And so a lot of times they'll have this one's just for phone calls and they don't have free text. That's like why WhatsApp's so popular and stuff.
Yeah,
so, it's
yeah.
so like here's a SIM where I just have prepaid phone minutes and then here's this other SIM where I have my data or
Right.
you know, things like that to try and finagle better
Right.
deals. And,
Or like people who carry two phones, one for work and one for personal, and you could.
yeah, that's a little harder to do because your
Yeah.
data, all the data that's on your phone doesn't change
Oh,
with
that's
the
true.
SIM. So
right.
that's a little harder to finagle.
Okay.
But you may have you may have like some international travel data plan if you travel a lot for work,
Right.
and you want to have that, and then you want to have your personal one with your personal phone number.
Yeah.
So you can do those kind of things too.
Okay.
So there's some advantages that just aren't as apparent to us here in the U.S. because of the way our
Right.
cellular
Right.
plans
Yeah.
work. You know.
It's another way to me of getting it. You know, the iPhone used to be a lot more locked device and stuff, but this
Right.
gives you a lot more freedom with what to do with it. And I
Yeah.
think that's, you know, when I first heard about it, I was like, you know, why isn't this just becoming like the standard? And I was like, oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
let's
the carriers
keep
don't
it
want
moving.
it.
They did this with the iPads. The cellular iPads at first were carrier locked, and then they moved to this Apple SIM where you'd have an Apple
Right.
SIM and you'd get to pick your carrier right there in the iPad. Like there was like a menu.
Yeah.
Now those are always data only plans that usually cost less, for like $10 a month for however much data
Yeah.
and everything. And then the latest generation of iPad Pros moved to an eSIM for that. So there's not even like a SIM
Right.
tray. So Apple's done this hardware before, but putting it in the iPhone kind of that's the big deal. That's a big global market thing. And
Yeah.
putting it in all of them
Mhm.
too, not just for one market.
Right.
And then oddly enough, in China, they're going to actually have a SIM tray that has two sides on it, and you put two SIMs facing back to back,
Yeah.
and you put that in there. And I think it's because Chinese regulatory authorities they're not down with the eSIM thing,
Right.
for a variety of reasons.
Got to
you know.
make sure you can.
Yeah, it either has to do with tracking how SIMs are sold or something like they
Yeah.
have their reasons they don't want eSIMs, so they're
Yeah.
actually going to do two SIMs in China.
Derek Curry says there's a major carrier propaganda campaign to kill the eSIM.
Yes, I can believe that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, certain carriers
Yeah.
are they definitely don't want you to be able to like see that there's a deal on a competitor and quickly
Quickly switch.
change or
Yeah.
easily switch.
Mhm.
And then other carriers are like trying to kind of promote it because they're like, we could gain customers. Like
Right.
we're making it easier to gain
Yeah.
customers. So
Depends on where you are in the hierarchy.
depends on where you are. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting.
I imagine Verizon is not a super eSIM fan,
Yes.
but Apple doing it kind of forces. They don't want to be the only major carrier not supporting it
Mhm.
on an Apple product.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's a big deal. They could ignore any one like Android product, any single Android product, but nothing's as big as iPhone. No
Yeah.
one product
Mhm.
is as big as iPhone.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's forcing everyone's hand.
So we've had our new phones for what has it been, a couple weeks?
Couple weeks
now?
Couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys, your experiences with them have been pretty.
Mine's been smooth sailing. I
Yeah.
mean, the Beautygate thing I think is true, but not that big a deal.
Mhm.
But other than that, I haven't had any of the problems anyone's mentioned. It's been super fast.
Yeah.
I think the camera's a lot better.
Mhm. Yeah, I am constantly amazed at how it performs in low light. I took a view overlooking the Sunset District the other night from a dark spot, by the way, and it came out beautifully. And it was funny, and I looked and it was a little blurry, but the thing is, I had literally just raised my phone and snapped it, and the fact that it came out that well at night, and and I was happy to see that some of my mentions was like they were understanding how amazing that was, because before it would be kind of washed out or something and everything, but. I will say because I one of the reasons I didn't go for a 10 is I like my big phones, and so I had the 7 Plus before, waited to upgrade on that. But I will say, if you're coming from an older phone like I did, and you're worried about those Face ID and touch gestures, that's going to be weird and stuff like that. Man, it's only a couple. I mean, I sent back my 7 Plus the other day. I think it feels so primitive now.
It does feel, after a while, it feels really weird to use a home button.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
Like you get used to not just unlocking your phone, but you get used to going back to the home screen that way. Or I get used to swiping between apps just by going left or right on the bottom.
Yeah.
I got so used to that, and then I go back and use an old phone for something. I need a screenshot for something, and I'm like, how do I? Oh, right, I press the button. Like, it's really weird to me now. It's become so natural. I think iOS 12 fixed a lot of those things, like where if Face ID didn't work, it was such a pain to retry. Now you just swipe up and you retry.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
So things like that, they've smoothed out a few edges, rough edges there.
And Apple Pay is easier now too, because you don't have to do the open the wallet bit and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, so I'm back on the 10s, back on iOS. I'm still getting used to it. It's a lot of things are I got used to being on Android for the past year.
Right.
That's a big jump. Yeah.
I mean, there's the one big thing is I hate how you can't move icons where you want to.
Yep. Agreed.
That's like the craziest thing that they still haven't changed, and they're probably never going to.
Right.
Yeah, I don't mind that there's no like app drawer or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine. The whole phone is the app drawer. I get it. But why do all the icons have to line up like left to right, top to bottom?
Right.
You can reorder them, but you can't move them. Like, let me just put a couple icons at the bottom where I can reach them.
And sort and separate them.
And separate them and put everything else like on screen too.
Yeah.
No,
Like if it were
can't
up
do
to
it.
me on my iPhone 10s Max, I would leave the upper left corner blank.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest for me to reach
Yes.
one-handed.
Yeah.
So, but I can't.
I'd leave the
Can't
whole top row blank.
Right, or the whole top row or something.
I
but you
don't
can't.
put that much on my home screen.
So
I see people do. I love this, and I don't think I could ever get used to it, but I love it. You can put folders in the home row.
Yeah.
right,
I do that.
That's
And
it's like a
people,
place. Yeah,
Some people have no icons
get that.
on their
Right.
first screen.
And just put folders.
They put like 4 folders in the home row.
Yeah.
For the things they use a lot, and then anything they don't use that often, they put like on screen 2 or something, so that their home screen just is like completely blank with just like 4 folders, and it looks awesome. I don't think I could stomach using that, though. I
Right.
think I would get real tired of
I
it.
only have one folder on the home row, but it's very convenient.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to organize everything. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish you could also do shortcuts, because then I feel like I want some things to go into a folder with everything else that's kind of like it.
Yeah.
But also maybe on the home screen, like if I could put a
Right.
shortcut, be like, I use my messages app or my mail app, all the time. But then it's like it logically belongs with other things.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if anyone else picked it up, they're like, well, I clicked on the folder that said productivity or
Right.
social,
and it's not there. It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And not that anyone else is going to pick up my phone, but that drives me bonkers too. I always go with like Instagram, and I'm like, well, I have a folder for photo stuff and a different folder for social media. Where does Instagram
Which one should
go?
I go into? Yeah, yeah.
And I do want to put it in both places. Just
Yeah.
So yeah, shortcuts would be nice, but that's like you said, number one with a bullet is just let me put icons where I want.
Right.
In my
Yeah.
case, the way I use it, if it is one that I use constantly, it gets out on the field on its own, like Instagram. But yeah, there are other ones, social media, where I do not use them as common, and they get in a folder. So that's the way I do it. Is the less common ones, but the ones that I that are not like super important, like mail and stuff that I do use a lot, they are that first folder on the home row, right in the lower right hand corner. So Pokemon Go is one of those. And stuff. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and I think as far as like face unlock, I am generally a fan of it. it doesn't always work when I'm wearing sunglasses.
You can turn. There is a setting you can turn off.
Ah.
I did it, and it makes a massive difference.
Right. What is it called?
It's basically
There's a
just
setting that
stops
says,
retina
restrictive or
scan.
something like
it
that.
says to require attention.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
It
require
means it
attention.
needs to see that you're looking at the screen, not just recognize your face.
Yes.
okay. I'll have
and
to
if
take
you
a look at that.
if you turn that off, I mean that makes it a little more secure. But if you turn it off, sometimes the sunglasses thing it just can't tell you're looking at the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also like in the car when I have it in like, the holder,
Yeah.
it, like obviously it's like I have to like stick my head
Right.
like way
You
over
gotta
to
go
the side to
way
unlock
over.
it. But my the Pixel 2 which I was on had the unlock button on the back, so it was blocked anyways.
Yeah, true.
So it's like that's kind of an equal thing.
Yeah.
Neither of them kind of
Neither
are
are great.
great,
You need a
yeah.
mount that lets you tilt it a little. Because if you
Right.
could just tilt it towards you a little, you could see it better, and you wouldn't have to juke your head over.
Yeah, and see that's an important thing that when you're reviewing these things, because that's a frustration I don't deal with because I don't drive. But yeah, I never even think about that. Yeah.
And Jones on YouTube has a I guess a suggestion of that. I don't even look for icons anymore. I just swipe down on the home screen and use search or Siri
Right.
suggestions.
Yeah. That's.
I do
sure,
that.
yeah.
I do that quite a bit for anything that's not just like so commonly used that it's right there on my home screen. Yeah, I end up doing
Search
this,
instead.
the Siri, the search. Just search your local phone.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people don't know that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad's
Search.
been using an iPhone forever, and he had no idea, and he's trying to find the music app. It's where did I put? And I said, just swipe down anywhere in the middle of your screen,
Right.
not from the top. Just like touch
Right.
the screen and swipe down, and then that you can search, and it searches all your apps and your
Right.
mail and like literally everything on your phone.
Yeah.
It searches. You can just type music and find something.
Yeah.
I am glad to have all my old apps back, and that they still work. So
That's cool.
yeah.
That's always good.
So yeah, I think overall I'm fairly happy. I like the full screen too. I'm not bothered by the what's the top thing? The wedge,
notch.
the notch.
The notch, the wedge.
You just don't even see it after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only time it bothers me is if I'm watching like a full screen video.
Yeah, that's
the
when it
fact that
bothers
it
me.
cuts in a little.
Right.
But that's only if it's like anamorphic. Because if it's 16:9, it's not getting blocked.
Right.
There are
right.
some where it's not actually blocked.
Yeah, if it's 16:9, you can either, unless you stretch it out to really fit,
Yeah.
So honestly, yeah, it's just not that big a deal to me.
Yeah. So. Well, yeah, we're working on a review for the iPhone XS. It'll probably be posted on Friday. So
Okay.
keep an eye out for that.
So there were a couple comments earlier, people about the October event.
Yeah.
People want to know about new iPads. Any other rumors? New Mac Mini. What are you hearing before we kind of
iPad
close
is the
things
most
out?
likely one. Everything else, I
Yeah.
think, is enough
Yeah.
in the air. It's almost
We-
certainly going to be iPads.
There's been no new rumors in the last few weeks.
Right.
It's been pretty quiet.
It's been
And-
pretty quiet.
And
but
the thing is now with this type of event,
Mm-hmm.
Apple has their own venue now.
Mhm.
So what we used to do in the past was we'd look up the schedule
Yeah.
for like the Bill Graham Center or Moscone.
yeah.
And we'd say, oh, look, that's blocked out to a private event that just
Yeah.
so coincides and with no vendor listed. But now that they have the Apple, their own center, we don't have anything. to
Yeah, they just
check.
send out an invitation like a week to 2 weeks ahead
Right.
of time, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then that's when we know.
Yeah.
And that's how much time, yes,
That's
they
how much
give you to
time.
get plane tickets if you're not from around
Yeah,
here. So-
hotels, all that stuff. You
Yeah.
get at most 2 weeks.
Right.
But do you think, since I feel like like for example with the September event, obviously we knew that was coming,
Yeah.
because it comes every year. But there's the rumor leaks that happen a month before. I don't feel like I'm hearing that much
No.
regarding new Macs. So
Right.
Nope.
does that mean anything?
Well, that's the thing. And I don't just mean us.
We're assuming
I
in
mean,
October,
like
right?
the tech media
Yeah.
has been kind of like assuming that there's going to be an October event because it sort of makes sense in terms
Yeah.
of what Apple's product release schedule. But Apple hasn't always had an October event.
Right.
Right.
It's been like 4 in
And
the
there's-
past 8 years or something
And
like
there's
that.
there's enough hints in iOS 12 and 12.1's code
Yeah.
to point to like there's definitely new iPads that these like the OS is like making room. There's like
Right.
when you right to the screen on a iPhone or something like that. Like the notch, like that's not you write to a rectangular pixel thing, and there's a mask
Right.
for the curved corners in the notch,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So that you can so there's a different mask found in the code for,
Right.
that's obviously for
Yeah.
these iPads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's things that let us know these are coming and probably coming soon.
Yeah.
So it's got to be in October. Maybe it's a November event. Who knows? But
Right.
some things are coming soon, but we just
don't.
there's no
yeah,
hard data. There's no
hard data. It's everything's been kind of extrapolated from other.
We've seen like
sources and
the
stuff.
leaks CAD,
Mm-hmm.
supposed CAD drawings and stuff of the new iPads. That's been out there for a couple months at least. now.
Right, and there's been reports of the new MacBook, the new Mac
Yeah.
Mini, those kind of things. So
But nobody's gone out there and like, here's somebody snuck out a photograph from the
Right.
manufacturing
Right,
thing
exactly.
of
Right.
the front glass,
right,
and things like that you often get.
right. We got a banner that fell off the truck that's being used for the event.
Yeah.
Right.
So kind of thing.
Going
or
to ask
something
for
like
some compensation.
that. Right.
The day is young.
True
yeah.
Patriot fans. But nothing like that. So it's all been kind of speculation and sleuthing and stuff like that. So I mean, they may not have another event. They may just release these products.
Yeah. I can't
So-
imagine.
That iPad is going to be a significant shift if it
Yeah.
has Face ID,
Yeah.
and there's the mystery port on there that nobody really knows what it does. And we have seen, in iOS 12, included some of the Face ID gestures for the iPad now, so that that's already a subtle hint that those types of changes are coming.
Yeah.
So I kind see, because that to me would be a big, especially if you can do it both in landscape and portrait mode, Face ID. That's a pretty significant shift. So I think they'll have an event. They wouldn't just release an iPad like that.
Yeah, there's no way they're just going to drop an iPad on the market that's like a whole new design.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And then there's another question on YouTube from, I'm going to kind of butcher this name, Prizzy Bilak, asking, what about iPhone XR quantity limitation?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
I mean, you never know for sure. It's part of the reason, supposedly part of the reason that it is launching later, I should say, because it's still a couple weeks out, is that they weren't able to manufacture enough of the display or something like that. So who knows if there's going to be a shortage. I would not be surprised if they were if they kind of sold out and they had like a 4-week waiting time for a little while,
Yeah.
because I think it's going to be kind of a popular model.
Yes.
I think it's most of what's great about an iPhone 10. Not everything, but it's like most of the most important stuff is still in there, and it costs a lot less.
Yes.
So-
It ain't cheap, but it costs a lot
Right.
less.
I think we're all in agreement that it's probably going to be the most popular one ultimately. But
So I don't remember who wrote it. Wasn't there an article speculating? I think it was speculation that the real reason why the iPhone 10R was held back is because they wanted to give the spotlight to the 10s.
I think
essentially.
that's definitely the case.
Well, there was.
possible,
I don't
yeah.
remember who. Somebody wrote
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was based on. I didn't read it. I don't recall if people were saying it was based on sleuthing that they put together 2 + 2 + 2 to
Yeah.
find out that this is it, or if it was just a pontification of somebody.
I don't think
So-
there's ever any way we'll know for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, we have read that the LCD that they're using and the way that it's being manufactured to get way off to the edge with no
Yeah.
bezel and stuff and not have a chin like all those Android phones do and stuff
yeah,
is hard, and they
right,
haven't been able to make a lot of them very quickly.
yeah,
So maybe that's it too. So it's hard to say.
See, if we were going to go in that direction, okay, take last year. The thing with the 8, it was pretty much like an older phone, whereas the 10 was the cool new thing.
Yeah.
So it was okay for the 10 to come at a release thing. It gave you something to look forward to. Whereas the 10R is very similar to the 10S. So in another way, you are kind of downgrading. So there's not this great thing to look forward to. It's still an amazing phone. Don't get me wrong, but this year, I think since they're very similar as opposed to last year, it's like get out of the gate with the really cool, expensive,
The more expensive one.
Yes, and then we'll release the, it was like, then you'll get to see how everybody likes their iPhone 10s's when they're charging properly and everything, and then you can get then they're like, ooh, I want a 10R.
the more expensive higher end one with the OLED screen, like create that halo effect with that, and then
Yeah.
release the one that's like, but you can also get all that great stuff cheaper.
Yeah.
Even though it's not quite all the same great stuff. It's not selling last year's phone like they did with the iPhone 5C, where it's like, here's the 5S, and also we're reselling the 5 in a plastic body
Right.
and calling it. I mean, this time they're not doing that. You don't
Yeah.
have the telephoto lens. You don't have the OLED. It's got 2x2 MIMO instead of 4x4, like a couple things. The
Yeah.
screen's not the high resolution, but it's still the A12. It's still the fancy new image sensor. It's still all the fancy new photography stuff. It still will do portrait mode, even though it's got one lens. Like maybe it
Right.
won't be as good. Maybe it will, but you're not compromising as much. Wireless charging's in.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But I think that's you get people a chance to get excited about this one, and then like you can have that too. So,
Yeah.
kind of.
So the iPhone 10R goes on sale October 19th, in about 16 days, a little more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's the pre-order
So,
date.
yeah,
and
that's
then
the
ships
pre-order
on
date.
the 26th.
6, I think.
And our own Mike Simon will be ordering that.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say
Mike
that. He's
Simon
really
will be
excited
ordering
about
it.
the 10R.
So and I think he's doing the review for us as well.
I
so,
think it's cool, but that man is genuinely excited about it.
yeah. So I don't think we're going to be live broadcasting him pre-ordering it though.
Not when he's the only one staying up for it.
So
I mean, yeah, he can do what he wants.
right. Does he know what color he's getting?
Will group FaceTime be available by then? Maybe we can just have everyone call him and then just be in a giant FaceTime group.
Yeah. So if
It
group
probably will be, actually.
yeah,
But
yeah, it could be. Yeah. So
So yeah, I guess plug in the contest for a free iPhone 10s
This very
Max.
one
I
right
think.
here.
yeah. So if you don't want an iPhone 10R and you want a free iPhone 10s
Max.
Max,
Yeah.
it's even bigger.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was the Max
So-
at first.
Again, it's a giveaway that we're doing in conjunction with iMovie, the makers of AnyTrans data transfer service. You can enter the giveaway on our website. Look for it on the homepage, and you can do a few other things. You can enter once with, I think, just your email address.
Yeah.
Then there's a couple other things you
That's
can do.
the
to
minimum
get-
because
right.
we have to contact you if you win.
Right. We need your. If you win, we need a way to contact you.
Yeah.
So.
So put in a real email address
Yes.
unless you just don't want to win.
Right.
That we can easily reach you at.
Yeah.
It's not like your third email address or something.
Yeah. And then there are a few other things you can do to get a couple more entries. So,
And it's reasonable stuff.
yeah.
We're not making you jump through like crazy. You
Right.
don't have to take crazy pictures and send them in. Or do
Right.
any stuff. It's like follow us on Twitter, subscribe
Right.
to the YouTube
Yes.
channel, stuff like that.
Yes.
We could have
Not
lock
a-
a Steve Jobs hair.
Yeah.
yeah. So go to our website, check that out, enter the contest. You have until October 15th to enter. Again, it's only legal residents of the 50 United States, including the District of Columbia, and also open to our folks in Canada, except Quebec.
Désolé.
And you must be 18 years of age or older. So go to our website, enter that contest.
And you can't be any of our relatives.
Yes. So,
And again, I'll just throw in one last comment because it
Yes.
came up multiple times. But Brace Day on Twitter reminded me: when will Apple release the AirPower wireless charging mat?
We would love to know.
yes,
Yes.
that's a good
It
question.
They
Dead
have
for now.
scrubbed it from the site practically.
Yeah.
And
It's
they
dead.
didn't mention it. I give it kind of like a 50-50 chance.
That's
it's
pretty
just
good. That's
S50
pretty good.
is better
That's-
than I
yeah,
would
you're-
give
dead
You're optimist.
forever.
it. Yes.
So,
You know.
yeah, I mean, there have been reports that there have been unofficial reports that it's caught on fire during testing.
Yeah, I know. Like really bad.
So,
Like it was much harder to do than they thought.
yeah.
My idea is we will eventually see one, but it'll be a totally different design from what they saw.
Yeah, we might see a totally different design. That's true.
Yes.
They might
So-
just like they'll come up with a plan B and make it different enough to say that they decided to do something better instead. That'll be the
Right.
the pitch.
Yes.
So-
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, there's a decent chance that how often has that happened that Apple has announced like a WWDC a product and then it
not,
just
doesn't.
never ships
Well, there.
at all.
I'm pretty sure there have been like OS features
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not actual hardware.
but not like hardware or
product, yes.
separate products
Yeah.
that have like
Just
Not
never
made it.
shipped. Yeah.
after being unveiled to the public. So I can't think of one.
Right.
Usually, as stuff goes on that stage, they're pretty confident in it. They're pretty proud
Yeah,
of it. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's been a year plus and no sign of it. So
Yeah.
And mum's the word.
Yeah. So I would, if you're waiting for that product, you might think about
I would
moving
get
on.
we have a whole roundup of other wireless chargers on the site.
Yeah.
Pick one of those.
As a reminder, Roman pointed this out, that if you open this and you look at the quick start guide, the little booklet they have in there, it will mention the AirPower. You can hook up this phone to your AirPower, charge it with your AirPower.
Is it on that or is it on the watch?
It's on the little pamphlet that comes
right.
in the
Okay.
iPhone.
Yeah. I saw it in mine.
The step through pamphlet. Yeah.
So is it on the watch too?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I
It is in the
just
phone.
remember
Oh,
during
yeah.
all those unboxings, people going like, "Look what's on the box! It says AirPower."
yeah. So,
All right.
well, that just about does it for this week's episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 624 for October 3rd, 2018. I'd like to thank Jason and Leif.
Hey,
Thanks,
thank you.
guys. I'd like to thank the most important man in the room,
Hint, hint.
Dan.
You're welcome.
I'd like to thank you, the audience, for participating. Thank you for your comments and questions. Join us next week. We usually broadcast on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time. We'll post the topics for the podcast on our website, so to keep an eye out for that. We'll also post it on Twitter and Facebook. And we'll be live on Facebook and Twitter on Wednesdays. So keep an eye out for that. Thank for watching. Bye.
Thank you.